Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. This will probably not be an overly long video. I just wanted to make sure some information got out there for people to be aware of in regards to Borderlands 3 and some potential misinformation or at least misinterpretation of the information that is out there. A reason being, while there's plenty to criticize Gearbox and 2K over surrounding the game, I am always one that prefers to criticize honestly. Tilting at the proverbial windmill detracts focus from the legitimate issues and criticisms at hand. So let's run through the details. Links to anything publicly available will be in the description down below. Recently, we've been seeing a great many people, or I should say Twitch streamers, complaining about Borderlands 3 consuming an insane amount of bandwidth. In particular, I was personally sent by multiple people this Twitch clip from Flare2V, a Twitch streamer with a pretty respectable 22,000 followers on Twitch. Now, let me go ahead and play that clip for you now.
So this is me finding out that I can't stream Borderlands 3 because it requires that it maintain a constant connection with something or other. It constantly requires that it upload up to and possibly over 2 megabits of data every second. That's as much as my upload speed. That is my upload speed. I cannot stream Borderlands 3. I have been waiting 7 years. I have streamed this game for years. I have streamed Borderlands for years, and I can't stream it. So, thank you to Denuvo, thank you to Epic, thank you to whatever decided that this was required for the game to exist. It's pretty heartbreaking.
Now, in relation to that, Flare2V had posted this image on Twitter that shows an inordinate number of Borderlands 3 network connections consuming bandwidth. Now, it's important to understand what we are looking at here, as while I myself am not all that good at picking apart executables, I can at least do this. Now, in this screenshot, we have a few key pieces of information. And be warned, this will be a lot of numbers talk here for a second, so please bear with me. First, the total I/O load to denote network consumption. Now, this is both download and upload, but the processes are sorted by total consumption, regardless of whether they be down or up. And on the network bar, we see that 3 megabits, that's bits not bytes, which is important, is being consumed. Now, below that, we have the individual processes, which shows total bytes, not bits, per second consumed. Now, for those of you that are not aware, they're not the same thing. Bit is a measure of speed. Byte is a measure of size. In order to convert between the two, the common rule of thumb is to take your measurement of speed, bits, and divide that number by 8, and you'll come out with the total amount of data that is being transferred per second. For example, if you're downloading a file at 16 megabits per second, you divide that number by 8, and you're able to determine that you're downloading a total of 2 megabytes per second. So, now that we have those basics out of the way, when we tally up the total amount of data sent in bytes for Flare2V's screenshot, we come up with 144,939 bytes per second. Now, we can convert bytes to bits by multiplying them by 8 to determine the bandwidth being consumed, which is 1,159,512 bits per second. Also, just so you're aware, there's 1,000 bytes to a kilobyte, 1,000 kilobytes to a megabyte, and so on and so forth. So that equates to 1.1 megabits of upload bandwidth being consumed by the Borderlands 3 executable. Definitely out of the ordinary, yeah? Well, not really, and I'll show you why. First, I ran my own bandwidth tests, and my apologies if the recording is a bit choppy. I had to use OBS to capture 2 of my 3 monitors simultaneously with the game running at the same time. You'll notice my bandwidth consumption is running at an average of about 135 kilobits per second, and much of the time the Borderlands executable doesn't even crack the top 10 in terms of bandwidth consumption. Now, I did fiddle with the settings in the options menu, but throughout the 30-minute test that I ran, there was absolutely no out-of-the-ordinary traffic, no odd bandwidth consumption, or anything that would even raise an eyebrow. And yes, before you all bring it up, I'm well aware of the Discord posting that is floating around the internet talking about how the game is run within a virtualized instance and there's an assumption that the game is behaving in an exceptionally intrusive manner. Be aware that the person making that statement is saying that there must be some sort of keylogging going on, which would absolutely be a security concern as well as a privacy concern. But that statement is an unfounded assumption, which, judging by the poster stating, quote, "that will be super juicy if we can prove that kind of illegal content." It's likely nothing more than an assumption based upon wishful thinking. Also, this person stated that the game required a 2 megabit per second constant upload, which would equate to 250 kilobytes of data every second being uploaded in the background. And I saw none of that. Even Flare2V saw none of that with his, which equates to 138 kilobytes per second. And when I ran my test, it equated to so little data as to actually be completely negligible, being in the single-digit range. So when we're confronted with this, we have to ask ourselves, what's the difference? What's changed between my system and multiple Twitch streamers? It's not one individual's computer experiencing the issue, so we can rule that out, so something must be different. And some might first say that, well, it's because you're playing in single-player mode and not multiplayer, which is true. I am. And it is entirely possible that playing in multiplayer would increase the amount of bandwidth being consumed because obviously the systems have to be able to communicate with each other in order for that to function. But I don't think that's it. No, I think the difference lies entirely in who they are and what they do. You have to remember, they're Twitch streamers. They're streaming. And remember that Gearbox developed this fancy Twitch integration called EchoCast that keeps viewers up to date with a metric ton of information and interactive features that are all based upon the gameplay they're watching. Well, that data has to get to the Twitch integration somehow. It just doesn't all appear out of thin air now, does it? So the issue with the strange bandwidth consumption comes down to most likely being the EchoCast integration. Now I'd recommend to those Twitch streamers that if it is causing an issue with their streams that they disable EchoCast. Because of course there are going to be a myriad number of factors, but judging in multiple other games and multiple other instances and what I'm seeing versus what Twitch streamers are seeing while they're trying to stream, I can say most likely EchoCast will be your culprit there. Now please remember, if we're going to criticize, make sure we're criticizing the right things. It's something I've been noticing a lot of lately, and all that serves is to create a hostile atmosphere within gaming that doesn't necessarily need to exist. And by all means, criticize Gearbox for all their horrendous anti-consumer actions. Criticize Randy Pitchford for any of the 1,000 terrible things the man has done over the years that has affected gamers. But we need to make sure that we're not tilting at windmills. Because if that's all we're doing, we'll end up missing something important that actually would need to have attention called to it. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and I'll see you next time.